good progress. The longest shutdown in history is not over yet.
Atlanta News First, Mary-Kate Hamilton is at the Georgia State Capitol with local leaders' reactions and what comes next.
That's right. It's been a long 40 days, but Americans can finally see the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. However, if the government reopens today, that does not mean Georgians will feel immediate relief. And both of our Georgia senators voting no to pass this stopgap funding bill. Georgia Senator John Ossoff citing high health care premiums, and he says they're set to double for 1.4 million Georgians, with nearly 500,000 at risk of losing their coverage altogether. He says, quote, the president refuses to fix it and withhold SNAP benefits while the House has not even come to work for a week, end quote. Senator Raphael Warnock echoes those statements and says he voted no to the proposal because it doesn't provide relief to the 1.2 million Georgians who will see their health care premiums double. Again, if a vote passes to reopen the government today, it will take some time for Georgians to feel relief. Hours before last night's vote, the Georgia Department of Human Services announced it'll issue partial SNAP benefits to Georgians, up to 65% of their regular amount. Governor Kemp criticizing Senator Ossoff's vote, saying, quote, even when members of his own party chose to do the right thing and reopen the government, Senator Ossoff did what Schumer told him to, end quote. Senator Warnock saying that Americans should not have to decide between being able to eat and being able to afford health insurance. We will, of course, continue to follow this vote coming up later today, so make sure to download the Atlanta News First app. Right now, reporting live outside of the Georgia State Capitol, Mary-Kate Hamilton, Atlanta News First.